By the time na natapos na yung adoption ni Charlie, I remember asking him, "When you lost your brother, did you feel alone?" Tapos ang sabi ni Charlie, "Ay hindi po, kasi po prepare po ako ni God." So sabi niya, by the time that the Lord took Ernie home, the Lord had prepared a family for him, so he didn't feel lost. Ang last billing niya sa akin, sabi niya, "Ma, yung mga friends ko sa loob ng government institution, balikan mo. Make sure na pati sila may pamilya din."
Ernie's loss actually became the catalyst of what we are actually doing now. I would tell him na anak, we didn't change anything from how we love you and your brother and nagmamahal ang lahat sabay-sabay. He's got great seats from where he is.
Welcome to the Soul Podcast, where we dive into stories that shape our souls.
We're sitting down with Pastor James and Issa Tica as they share how faith, love, and loss have shaped the way they care for orphan children in the Philippines. Their journey from adopting their two sons, Charlie and Ernie, to leading their church in fostering and mentoring more than 62 orphans shows that family can be chosen, fought for, and built through love.
I am Issa Tica, married for 30 years to Pastor James. I am a licensed teacher and recently just became a registered social worker. And in my prophecy years ago, they said sa junior senior prom, you are going to be a mother to many children. Little did I know na I was going to be a mother to many children.
I am Pastor James and I'm her driver. That's my calling in life. I'm a pastor in International Bible Church in Mandaluyong and the satellites. And that basically is what my life revolves around. I teach. I'm a theology professor at the same time, but all of that basically comes down to that I was called by the Lord to be where I am.
So we're called the Soul Podcast, and we ask this to every single guest. What fuels your soul?
Parang ang lalim pero simple lang naman yan. Sa akin is the thought of facing the Lord and Him telling me that, well done, thou good and faithful servant. So when I think of that, what really matters is what the Lord will say of me when I get to see. So that's what fuels my soul.
Same thing. Sa akin, what fuels me is that at the end of the day, when you're alone, if you can say to the Lord, you've done everything that He wants you to do, the best that you can, even if sometimes you kind of come up kind of short, when you gave it 100%, 1,000%, then it's going to be okay.
I know you guys have shared your story like a bajillion times already, but I think I want to start by asking, can you share who's in your family?
Ito na yan.
How many?
No. The immediate family.
The
I mean,
immediate
the
family. Well, there's us.
biological family.
There's us, and our oldest one is Andy. She's married. We got 2 grandkids with her. And then all boys na after that. So we have Andrew and Lucas and Charlie and Ashton, Franklin and Noah. Can't say in one breath. Ang dami nun. Ang dami nun.
7 biological children and 2 grandchildren. Obviously, sa akin nanggaling yung 7. And then in 2016-17, 2 boys, and then process their papers to be fostered, eventually adopted. So kaya merong 7 biological and then 2 adopted boys.
We actually didn't really know the difference between fostering and adoption at that time. But the laws were so difficult. So we went the fostering route.
Yeah.
At that time, pwede pa yun eh. Then from there, with all the intentions of adopting to begin with, yeah. But that was the easier route at that time. So we started fostering and eventually filed for adoption after that.
So in
16.
I'll start with 2012, no? So being a family of ministers, my husband is a pastor. Yung church namin, yung culture talaga is very adoptive, no? Which is common din naman sa mga other smaller churches. You know, you're taking a child out from the street, ganun. So for many years, yun po yung culture po namin. If you have kids na, let's say, OFW yung mga parents, absentee yung mga parents, so ganun yung culture ng church namin. So it's not something that...
It's not new.
It's nothing new, no?
Nothing we came up
Yes.
with. Yeah.
So through the years, for many decades, ang dad niya, every Christmas, we would do, just like any other church, we would do Christmas gift giving sa mga communities. We had done that by 2016. 2016, mga 30, 40 years
Yeah, I
na
think we
ginagawa ng
started
church.
doing that like 1970,
70s.
74,
Right.
73, something like that.
Well, why don't we do gift giving in an orphanage? And so I reached out to one of my friends, tapos he directed us to one of the largest government residential area here in the
Largest
metro.
nata in
In Metro
at
Manila,
that
I
time,
think, yeah. Tapos kaya lang when we got there, when we were introduced to the place, there were 700 kids. Tapos sabi namin, di ata natin kaya ng gift. Kasi yung gift giving sa communities, usually bigas, gatas, ganun ano. So hindi naman siya pwede sa loob ng orphanage. So sabi namin, parang hindi ata okay. And we were actually discouraged.
Yeah.
We were discouraged kasi ang sabi nila, wag kayong mag-gift giving sa orphanage ng Pasko. Because everybody else is doing it.
Yeah, I remember seeing the
The
big board.
list. The board.
The list of everyday activities pag Pasko. It's like sometimes they would have 3, 4, 5 organizations in one day.
In one day.
One day giving like food and
Food, toys,
and the kids have to do like a program parang in return, ganon. And then, isipin mo, can you imagine you have to dance for your Happy Meals and your Jollibee or whatever in exchange, and people take pictures of you and then they leave. And then, susubok ka pa lang biglang, oh, there's another group na. And you're like,
Yeah.
yeah. So they said, no, that's a bad idea.
So sabi namin, okay, but we still wanted to do something. Kasi nung nakita na namin yung lugar, sabi namin, we have to do something for this place. Since we have youth camps pag Christmas, sabi nila, try natin invite. So we attempted, but it's something na has never
It's
been
never
done.
been done. It's like
It's never
50
been
years
done.
old na yung institution, mahigit na yun.
Because, syempre, yung fear of kids escaping, no?
Risky.
But we were allowed nung Christmas na yon. Christmas of 2016, 25 boys were allowed to join our youth camp together with a social worker and 2 house parents. And that was when I met a boy named Charlie. So it was during that camp, he actually got in trouble. So that's why na-catch yung attention
Yeah,
ko.
that's your attention.
But I said, nung nalaman ko nga, the youngest boy from that institution.
I think he was what,
got in trouble.
12?
He was 12 at that
Yeah.
time. I actually saw him last day na ng camp namin. Pauwi na sila. They pointed him out. Sabi nila, that's the boy who got in trouble. And I looked at him and I said, this isn't a bad boy. Sabi ko, survival mode tong batang ito. And I remember saying goodbye to him. We got him inside the jeepney to send him back home. I looked at him and I said, magpakabait ka, sabi ko. And we sent him back home. And that was the time na sabi namin, ganun lang ba yun? We invite them to a camp and then we
You
send
send
them
them
back
back.
home and then that's it.
And it so happened that at camp, all 25 of them came to know Christ in just that one camp. So we did a celebration the Sunday after.
We did a celebration the Sunday after, invited them.
It was actually like kind of a ploy to get them back out. So we told the people, the administrators, oh, parang reward because they went to good boy sila, ganyan. So they came.
They came and of course, I was looking for Charlie and then they kept pointing this one boy to me. Ayun po si Charlie, yun po si Charlie. But he kept saying na hindi siya si Charlie. Come to find out, it wasn't Charlie. May bumulong sa amin kasi hindi maganda yung reason why Charlie wasn't there. So sabi nila, hindi po si Charlie po yan. Si Ernie po yan, kapatid po niya. And since he said, it can't be just that. Hindi pwedeng we just bring them to camp and that's it. So we would visit them on a regular basis. Maybe once, twice a month. But because our church ay hindi naman kami very well funded, it's a small community church. We would go there not bringing anything. Wala kaming food, wala kaming gift.
Everybody else did kasi when you came, parang almost like an SOP. You go there, like you give stuff. Kailangan meron. And we felt like it has to be a little bit more than just giving stuff. So yeah, we would just visit, I would bring dalawang Coke, and a cup.
Yung mga tigpipiso, mga
Yung
chips,
biscuit,
no?
or we would buy it inside the place, ganyan, and we would just sit down and just have a real talk, not really knowing actually what we were doing, but we just thought it was the right thing to do.
Every time we would go there and then leave, talaga yung feeling ko, yung heart ko talaga naiiwan with the two boys.
Two boys,
With Charlie and Ernie.
But they would follow from afar. This is the part where
Very quiet lang.
I would tease her. I would say, uy, parang si Mother Carabao looking for the baby Carabao. Unlike the bigger boys, kasi they're
Yeah,
older na sila. They would
makikipagkwentuhan
come,
talaga.
"Tita,
But the two
Pastor."
boys, hindi.
Sila, they would follow them like afar. Like, parang nakatingin lang sila sa kanyang ganon. But they would never come approach her. Ganon.
And so, yun na, quietly na, started praying about it. Sabi ko, balikan ko nga yung I foster. Backtrack ako about 4 years prior to that. With the passing of the foster care law, we became acquainted with an organization, an NGO. It's called Operation Compassion with iFoster. Ang target ng iFoster is to reach out to churches. So they would look for families inside the churches kasi ganun na naman yung heart ng people inside the church.
You might as
Gusto
well.
nila,
Yeah.
yeah, they might as well find families who want to be licensed foster parents. And so, naririnig na namin about foster care, but obviously, having raised 7 kids, I was done with taking care of babies, diba? So sabi ko,
I was done with
this isn't for
diapers,
me.
basically.
Not for me. Tsaka in my idea kasi of fostering before was babies. But dahil nga we're in ministry, so ang contribution namin doon is we would always have them come and speak pag meron po kami mga events. Fast forward na ngayon in 2016, sabi ko, paano ba yung proseso na binabanggit nila, no? Paano ba yon? And then, finally, binanggit ko sa kanya. And then, kaming dalawa muna nag-pray. And then, we obviously included our biological children. Tapos, ang isang usapan namin, we won't tell anyone else. Kami lang. Because we wanted it to be a clear instruction from the Lord. Although, I mean, meron namang mga good counselors, godly counselors from outside, pero gusto namin talagang kaming family lang.
Right.
And so yun.
Di ba kasi at that time, it was such a foreign thing. Lalo na interest namin were teenagers. That's like totally off the beaten path at that time. When you adopt or foster, gusto mo baby.
Right.
We didn't know better. Ang alam ko lang, I just didn't want to do diapers anymore. Honestly, I always tell that. People kind of get disappointed. Parang, kala ko pa man ng hero ka, ayaw mo lang pala mag-change ng diaper. I just did it. So, yan. So we did. We didn't tell anyone.
So,
We started the
finally,
papers then without telling anyone
without
still.
telling
Not even my
anyone.
sister.
Ang prayer ko noon was that, okay, Lord, sabi ko, sige, simulan ko yung papers, pero pag merong, if this is not for us, then ikaw, Lord, ang maglagay ng hindrance dun sa process. Lo and behold, in 2 weeks, na-complete ko lahat ng papers, submitted them, and that was it. When we got the 2 boys, as foster children, immediately we spoke to our social worker and said, ang intention talaga namin is to adopt them kasi we were not going to return them. We just knew that it was easier to foster.
At
It
that
was
time,
quicker
yeah. At that
to
time.
get them through foster care. So nung time na yon, wala pa yung bagong batas. So we
It's
had to
hard.
go through the administrative and then judicial.
Get
Two-pronged siya,
lawyers,
right?
yeah.
Right. Sobrang tagal. It took years.
Why in the world would you make something so good, so hard? Diba? Kung isipin mo, diba? It's like if you were drowning in the sea, you don't wait for a certified Red Cross lifeguard to save you. You wait for anyone who's got the passion, and the compassion to come out and reach out, and you reach out for that hand. Bakit parang ang hirap? Pahirapan pa natin. That to me, had you told me then ahead of time, yeah, I would probably had strong second thoughts about going through that journey.
Although we have new laws na ngayon that has made fostering and adoption easier, pero hindi pa rin siya easy. And meron namang reason why it's become really hard for Filipinos here in the Philippines to adopt because of the high percentage din of trafficking. Na? So, naintindihan naman natin yon. Pero tama yung sabi niya, why is it so hard? Why is it so difficult?
Yeah, kasi in my mind, if problema yung trafficking, di tingnan nyo, may criminal record ba to? May bad record ba to? O wala naman. Sige, tuloy na natin. So it was hard. It was really hard.
So you were already fostering Charlie and
Right.
Ernie, and then you had to go through the adoption process. Can you just walk us through that time?
One of the difficult steps in the adoption process is if nahanap ang biological parents, they have to sign to give up their rights. Yun yung beauty ng legal adoption eh. Kasi if you go through it the legal way, pag natapos na yan, pag may finality na yan, no turning back
Wala
yan.
na.
Walang habol
Yeah,
yan.
yun
Kahit
na.
nasabihin, ay nagbago isip ko, no more na. So, we had to look for the biological parents and then nahanap nga. And then yung difficult part was having to go back and forth to convince them to sign the papers. They didn't want to sign the papers but they weren't willing to take the kids back again. 3-4 years, pabalik-balik kami until pandemic came, so it was a little bit more difficult. Hindi ka makalabas, hindi ka makapunta dun sa area where the parents are, where the mother was. And then in 2020, so lahat tayo lockdown in our homes. And nag-start na tayo ng online classes. And then one day, si Ernie,
He was on the computer.
He was on the
Yeah.
computer. Tapos, biglang parang nag-flicker
Fluctuate,
nag-fluctuate yung light. He was working on a project and hirap na hirap siya pagdating sa English. So, nung biglang bumalik yung ilaw, nabura yung
Hindi
work
niya
niya.
na-save.
Hindi niya na-save. And then suddenly,
Parang siyang na-shock na
Para
hindi mo
siyang
maintindihan.
na-shock
Yeah.
na we couldn't understand na para siyang nanginginig na sabi namin, it's okay, we'll help you.
I'm a counselor. That's part of what I do. Sabi ko, parang siya nagka-break. Parang
Para
siya
siyang
nagka-nervous
nervous
breakdown.
breakdown. So yun yung fear namin. Kasi nga naririnig mo na yung mental health issues eh. Sabi namin, para siyang nagka-nervous breakdown. So nini-review pa namin, yung biological family kaya niya, merong history
Yeah, wala
kaya,
kaming
ganun.
record at all.
And then,
Tapos di ba pag kakain siya,
kakain siya,
hindi niya
nanginginig siya.
masubo yung food
Tapos sabi
niya.
namin,
Ganon. It's just
Is,
crazy.
is it a
fear.
breakdown? Is it a stroke? Hindi namin maintindihan. And then, there would be nights he would wake up crying. Kakatok siya sa amin. Sabi niya, Daddy, natatakot ako. Naiiyak ako. Hindi ko maintindihan yung naramdaman ko. So, they would pray. They would listen to worship songs. And then, weeks later, headaches were getting really stronger, really bad. And then, yung worsening ng weakening of his one side.
Since lockdown before, I would record my live stream. Lahat naman tao naka-live, pati pastors doon, naging televangelist, lahat ng pastor doon. Then after we eat lunch, lahat kami mga boys would go to the gym ng church and play ball. So siya yung kapartner ko sa basketball noon. So napansin ko, hindi siya sumasama. Addict sa basketball yan eh. He would play ball on his own. Hindi siya sumasama for like mga 2 or 3 consecutive Sundays, so hindi siya sasama. Right. And then we got a vacation.
And then we went on a vacation.
October. Tama ba?
Private,
Yeah.
October 31. Yun na yung talagang hindi na siya bumabangon kasi sobrang sakit ng ulo niya.
Sabi ko, anak, are you okay? Pinacheck ko yung BP, okay naman.
Pero hindi kami makapunta sa
Oo,
petya.
you couldn't-
Kasi nga, bawal pa lahat. Everything was online. But on that day, sabi ko, on our way home, sabi ko, baba mo kami sa ER of this one big
Because
hospital.
the
Baba mo kami.
vacation short.
So, sabi ko, baba mo na kami. I can't wait for the schedule pa ng pedya. We got dropped off, kaming dalawa. Immediately, they did an MRI. And then within an hour, the doctor came out and then told me, sabi niya, he has a very big mass in his brain. And tapos sabi ko, are you saying that he has cancer? Gumanon ako. Sabi niya, opo. Without even any biopsy or anything. Sabi niya, yes po. So, sabi nila needed immediate operation. So, within a week, they did surgery. We were transferred to a government hospital kasi we couldn't afford the private hospital. But when they opened him up, it was just enough to drain the fluid, put a shunt in his brain, but they couldn't touch the tumor. To be specific, it was glioblastoma. Ang glioblastoma,
It's the worst.
walang staging. Immediate, it's stage 4. So, he said, we don't know how much time he has.
Kasi syempre, you want to ask how much time do you have? Sabi ng doctor, what you have now. So you have anywhere between 2 days to maybe 2 months. You don't know kasi the longest ata in the Philippines is 10 months. 10 months. So that kind of aggressive.
And syempre ako, can't help but, ask the Lord. No? Sabi ko, Lord, bakit? Akala ko ba the reason why you gave us these 2 boys was because you wanted them to have a hope and a future. Sabi ko, grabe naman, hindi pa nga naproproseso yung adoption, tapos biglang kukunin mo. Ano ba yun? And then parang andun yung question mo na, akala ko ba if you say yes, you'll take care of everything. Ito kami, nag-yes kami, tapos bakit ganito? But immediately after I asked the Lord, immediately, He answered me. Sabi niya, that's exactly why I put him in your family. Because I knew that this day would come and he would need a dad, a mom, siblings that would take care of him. Kasi iniisip ko, if that had happened sa loob ng institution, he probably would never have been diagnosed. Diba? He would just drop dead. So, sabi sa akin ni Lord, kaya ko siya nilagay kasi alam ko magkakasakit siya. Kailanganin niya ng nanay at tatay na mag-aalaga sa kanya. Talagang, it was a direct answer from the Lord. We would have friends who would say, no, just have faith, just believe, believe in the miracle. Pag nag-doubt ka, hindi ibibigay yan sa'yo ni Lord. Believe ka, mag-miracle lang Lord, pagagalingin siya. But I know in my heart, my miracle, sometimes people think na the miracle is in the healing of the impossible. But to me, the miracle was even if kunin siya ni Lord, alam kong will ni Lord yon. And I trusted in His will. Ang masakit nun, kasi after po nun, the parents actually signed the papers kasi ang sabi nila, well, if he's gonna go, wala na kaming pakinabang, sign na namin ang papers. Tapos sabi ko, ang hirap mag-forgive, 'di ba? Tuturuan ka rin ni Lord na mag-forgive. 2 months time, that was November 1 when we were told na may sakit siya. November 6, surgery. By January 7, the Lord took him home. But ang last billing niya sa'kin, sabi niya, "Ma," sabi niya, "yung mga friends ko and kapatid ko sa loob ng government institution, balikan mo. Make sure na pati sila may pamilya din." It took us another, kasi syempre pandemic and then he passed away. Medyo mahirap to continue with the process of adoption. So we had to wait a little bit. And then, so nung by the time na natapos na yung adoption ni Charlie, I remember asking him, when you lost your brother, sabi niya, did you feel parang isolated, no? Did you feel alone?
Yeah.
Tapos ang sabi ni Charlie, ay hindi po. Kasi po prepare po ako ni God na magkaroon na ako ng kapatid bago pa nawala ang kapatid ko. So sabi niya, by the time that the Lord took Ernie home, the Lord had prepared a family for him, so he didn't feel lost. So yun yung talagang nagdadrive sa akin to continue kahit na mahirap yung process, kasi nagbilan siya. If you take in a child for foster care or adoption, you never know how much time you have. Even with your own biological child, you don't know how much time you have with your loved ones. Kaya lagi mong susulitin however much time you have with them.
Sabi nga niya, you pray for a miracle that it will happen, it will happen. Looking back, the miracle for the two boys already happened. Why? In Philippine law, when you are 4 years old, you're called unadoptable. And for you to be 14 and 13 to be adopted, that was the miracle for them, to be taken in. That was the bigger miracle for them. Ernie's loss actually became the catalyst of what we are actually doing now. Kasi this is not part of the plan. Fostering wasn't a part of the plan. Adopting wasn't a part of the plan. Pero if you just keep following and following what God's trying to do, then He opens up other ways to do it. And so his passing actually became kind of like the anthem or the catalyst that basically put us where we are and what we're doing now.
When we got the boys, dahil nga yung institution was their home for 10 years, no? 9-10 years, we kept coming back. Earlier, we mentioned na when we go there, we just spend time with the boys. We don't really bring stuff for them. It was just really spending time, getting to know them, building relationships. And little did we know na yun pala talaga yung hinahanap nila. A year after that, tinawag kami sa office nung institution na yon, and then they were...
Na-office kami. Sipin mo yun.
Na-office kami. And then, we were presented with a list with 33 names. Tapos sabi sa amin ng OIC, sabi niya, Pastor James, Sister Issa, may mga kids kaming mag-age out. And at the time, di namin alam, sabi
Yeah, we didn't know what he was talking about.
Oo, but apparently, sa mga institutions, pag 18 ka na, out ka na, no? So sabi nila, we have 33 kids who are aging out. And since we had built the relationship with them, sabi sa amin, they all wanna go with you. So sabi namin, ha? I
Sabi namin,
wanna go with you.
ano yung age out? Backtrack.
Tapos
Yeah, we're
biglang
sitting across the table from each other.
tumingin kami dun sa OIC, tapos sabi namin, sige po, nag-yes kami. We couldn't say no. How do you say no? When all those kids na walang family outside, ikaw lang inaasahan. And kahit na we really didn't have much. I mean, if you go to our church, you see the facilities, we don't have much. But the kids are looking for more than just facilities. They're looking for more than just food and clothes and a home. They're looking for a family. They're looking for a relationship. Every year after that, tuloy-tuloy, kids would age out and then they would ask to join our family. Some of them, they have their own families na rin. Pero yan ang journey namin up to now. Patuloy pa rin na yan ang ginagawa namin.
You already kind of answered this, but if there's a way to summarize why you guys said yes, how did you just say yes to fostering?
I couldn't say no.
I was thinking the same thing. It was impossible to
I-
see
It's
everything and say no, even if they never asked.
Before we even started the paperwork for foster care, we asked our kids. But like I mentioned earlier, yung church culture namin, it's always very welcoming families, children, even adults who don't have families. So yung mga anak namin, they grew up na sanay sila na always welcoming people into not just the church but our own homes.
Yeah, I grew up with strangers living in my house. In fact, our Nino, when we got married, he was already with my parents when he was 14 years old. So he came off the street, had nowhere to go. Mom and dad said, dito ka na sa amin. Ganon. And so yun. And later on, they became our Nino. So ganun yung culture nung church. That's how it's always been.
But I did have my fears, syempre, when we welcomed na the boys. When we first started, talagang clueless kami, no? We didn't even know that it was a big thing to foster teenagers.
We were so puzzled kasi all of a sudden, when we started to do the foster towards adoption, suddenly we kind of unintentionally became the poster children for adoption. And I'm like, di ba matagal na na-invento yung adoption sa Pilipinas? Unbeknownst to us na parang we were one of, maybe the only in that year, na nag-adopt or foster to adopt teenagers. That was the big deal pala. Like I said, walang noble cause to. Ayoko lang mag-diapers. Yun lang talaga yung sa akin eh. So we did. And so, such a big deal pala na doon namin naramdaman yung mga stigma na, hala, baka mamaya serial killer yan, no? Baka mamaya merong ganito yan, may ganyan yan, may ganon. Lalo na sa Filipino-Asian culture, di ba? Sinek mo na ba yung mga magulang niyan?
Family
Sinek mo na ba yung family niyan?
Ang isang fear ko nun, but later on ko na lang napag-isipan yon, right? Kasi nasa amin na yung mga boys. But after nun, I was thinking, kasi siguro naririnig ko na from other people, because the boys grew up sa isang government institution, they lived there for 10 years. So, ang ano is, what were their experiences? Diba? What if meron silang
What they
mga
go through.
natutunan
Yeah.
na mga hindi magaganda and would bring it to our home? Instead of our biological kids influencing the two boys, it would be the two boys
Right.
na mag-influence or baka, worse is, abuse, no? But I think one thing na really, really helped us, very open kasi kami sa mga kids namin. So talagang discussions that minsan parents don't feel comfortable talking to their kids about, talagang kinakausap namin sila about protecting yourself, about abuse and all of that. So yun yung isang bagay na nakatulong.
So it actually leads me to a surprise question.
Okay.
From your pananay Andy. So she asked, so what has been the most significant change you've seen, positive or negative, that adoption and foster care has had on your biological children?
Wow. I don't know. The reason why I say I don't know, like I said, our church culture and our family culture is very adoptive talaga. Hindi uncommon for people to come in and out of our lives. In fact, in my personal family life, Christmas Eve, Noche Buena, Medianoche, we don't spend it alone. We spend it with the church.
Yes.
Malungkot kami if we're in the US or somewhere in the world na kami-kami lang. Parang it's open. Like, you guys are welcome to join us in Noche Buena. No, literally. And every year since I was born, my parents came to the Philippines in 1970, 71. Since that time, if people don't have a place to go on Noche Buena, bring what you got. If all you have pandesal, dalhin nyo. Let's all potluck together and we spend it with people. So, hindi intrusive in that way. If I say negative, I guess the most negative you could put it is that they've had to make adjustments to their lives. Maybe giving room na yung dating 4 people in the room, naging 5 na.
6.
6 kasi si Ernie at that time, sabay nga pala sila. But since they responded to it in such an incredible way, hindi ko din masabi na negative kasi they actually just realized na, pwede pa pala. Actually, the same person, my daughter, who asked that question, she answered it with the same answer when she was interviewed for another network that she was being interviewed for. Pwede pa palang mag-enlarge yung life ko, yung heart ko, mag-accommodate pa ng more people. So the negative actually became a positive because they grew as a result of that. Tell them about the Enchanted Kingdom issue. Siguro people think that would be a negative. That was the last day, di ba?
That
Kasi
was the last day.
we were supposed to return them.
Yeah.
Bago matapos ang summer vacation,
vacation.
tapos na yung foster papers nyo, dire-diretso na kayo adoption. Wow, we're like, babalik na sa pasukan. wala pa rin yung papers namin. So now we have to talk to them and say, Charlie, Ernie, we have to return you. Can you imagine that? An entire summer,
So
kasi
we
all
were
my-
together every single
every day,
Yeah.
and lahat ng speaking engagement ko all over the
Kasama
country,
sila.
kasama
Yeah.
sila lahat. Tapos suddenly sasabihin mo, oh, next week sasoli na namin kayo. Oh, it's like, it's killing you, right?
The night before, the day
the
before.
night before.
Right.
We said, sige, let's go to like the amusement park para lang solid yung day na yun. And they started fighting. Ang boys, pag nag-away, ramdam mo yung rumbling. Upaha kita dyan. Yung mga ganon. So, parked over dun sa Enchanted Kingdom, she's crying. Not only because you have returned
Return
the kids the
them, yeah.
next day, and on the last full day, nag-away pa. So she's like, I think we made the wrong decision. Maybe ito na yung sign ni Lord na hindi talaga sila for us kasi nag-aaway sila. Talagang she was like really regretting kasi napasama pa yung life nila kasi napabuti. Me being the boy, understood how fights happen. I said, babe, yeah, they're fighting. It's bad. But look at how it's divided. Ernie is on one side of the fence and Charlie is on the other side of the fence. Ibig sabihin, it's not the two boys versus the others. It's more split in between the two. So it's not a bad thing. It's actually a good sign.
When they were sent back, it was actually our kids na talagang tanong ng tanong, ma, kailan sila babalik? Like he said, even yung negative turned out to be positive eh. Hindi masyadong difficult yung sharing their things, their room, their space. I think it was more of sharing the time ng mom and dad nila. We're so blessed na yung kids namin really learn to adjust. In fact, sometimes sila pa yung sila pa yung nauuna, o ma, kailan ba yung ganito, kailan ba yung ganito. They're such givers. Yung heart talaga nila ay iba. So blessed kami with our kids.
I think they were from the parents.
Going back to what Ernie said, di ba sabi niya, balikan mo yung mga kaibigan ko. Can you just tell us more about that? Also, how not only your family took in that mission, that your whole church also took in that mission.
So we had 18 right away. So at first we had housing issues. After we both said yes, we got to the car and said,
Saan
"Ano
natin sila
saan natin
ilalagay?"
lalagay?" And she came up with this bright idea. How about let's put him in your office? Parang, bakit office ko? So, sabi niya, dahil mo namang office. So, up to now, we've converted my office into the girls' dorm and then the other room in the church to be the boys' dorm. We realized something, that as much as we're so happy na nandun sila and the church then, we also realized na we can't fill up the parenting thing. Surprising, di ba? Why would you think 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds gusto pa rin ng pamilya? Kasi people who are outside, they can't wait to be 18 and I want to do my own thing. Grew up in an institution where everything is up in the air. You want something that's stable, something you can call your own, someone you can call your own, people that you can say, oh, in akin yan, ganon. And we couldn't do that for 18. So we decided na let's open it up to the church. And Filipinos have this beautiful culture. It's called Ninong and Ninang. Well, she said, why don't we dedicate them? I'm like, parang awkward nun, di ba? Dedicate natin 20 anyos na sila. Pero sige, fine. So we brought up to the church. We introduced them and said, these are our new kids. You know, they're all aged out. If you're interested in being a ninong or ninang, there's no financial commitment. They don't have to live in your house, but you will be their mentor. You will be the one checking on them and encouraging them and so on and so forth. And within, 2 weeks? Something like that. The roster was full 2 times over of ninongs and ninangs, you know. When you grow up in an institution, relationships are transactional. If you want to get on the good side, you do more chores. You sip-sip dun sa mga authorities that are there. Dun ang magiging basis of how much they'll make you feel loved or favored. But now people are coming to them and just want to get to know them and be real people with them. They're not used to that. And that became a strong point for the church.
So ang tanong sa amin madalas, are you an NGO? Are you an organization? Are you licensed by DSWD? Ganyan. We wanted to keep it na our home, extension of our home, no? But also, ang negative part nun, because hindi kami talaga institution, so pagdating sa fundings
Wala kaming
namin,
funding.
hindi kami pwedeng mag-solicit ng funds, no? So talagang,
But we
dun
didn't want
namin,
the kids to feel like
correct,
they moved
right.
out of an institution and then
Just to another
moving
institution.
on to another institution. Buong
Tapos,
bahay mo, institutionalized ka na.
And ayaw namin na gamitin yung stories nila to solicit help, no? Parang
Right.
We can
And even now, as we speak, they can come and go when they feel like, you know, I found a job, tapos doon na ako mag-bed space, ganyan. Then they're free to go. Walang problema. What's funny is, a lot of them, they work in other areas na medyo malayo na from the church. So they have housing there, but they'll keep their bed in the church. Magbabayad kami ng bed space para lang mama-feel nila na I can go home.
Tsaka ang isa naming ginawa nun, because nga wala kaming regular funding from the outside, when we say church community, talagang church community
Literal
siya
church
talaga.
community.
So for example, like pag may sakit, may doktora kami sa church.
They volunteer their time.
You have your free medical checkup. We have a dentist.
Tutors, like retired engineers na nagtuturo ng math doon sa
Oo.
mga alaga.
And then of course, we have that
Right.
school na hindi kumikita because lahat libre, right?
Lugi kami doon.
And
Can you
then,
imagine, one time 18 students checked into the school, walang bayad.
tapos we have people who have their own businesses and companies na i-hire sila kahit kulang ang documents nila. So talagang siya, it's a community effort na tulong-tulong kasi kung kami lang talaga hindi talaga namin kaya. Even with ngayon, yung community college namin, we work closely with the local government unit, the LGU. So yung college doon, isang tawag ko lang, pasok na agad yung mga kids namin doon. Pag may problema sa kapulisan, sa DSWD, lahat kakilala natin. So talagang community effort siya talaga. But primarily, the church has really come together.
Yeah, it's a literal story of the everyone can do something.
Can you give us a picture of what happens to a child who grew up in an orphanage and was never adopted and fostered, who didn't have the story as fortunate as your 67 plus kids?
Cycle. It becomes a cycle.
Yeah, vicious.
We've seen kids na walang family, walang community na nag-receive sa kanila. So when they leave the institution, survival mode, right? Kapit sa patalim. Kung sino man ang unang magpakita dyan ng any kind of interest, whether it be good or bad. And
Yeah.
most of the
Trafficking.
time, negative, right? You have trafficking and
Kapit patalim eh.
kapit patalim
Yeah.
talaga. And then sadly, because right at the moment, as we are speaking, right now, I have 2 girls na when they were released, wala silang napuntahan and just recently gave birth to 2 babies again.
We didn't know they were released. So
Actually, sorry, no, not 2, 3.
3. We
I
didn't
have
know they
3.
were released. We were never told.
Gave birth a few months ago and now their babies are back in the orphanage kasi they're not able to take care of them.
It's a cycle. Tapos wala silang papers. So, yung anak nila wala ding papers. Pag nag-asawa sila, they can't get married kasi wala silang birth certificate. Ito yung legit na generational curse. Kasi it's like, no choice. Just, live together, have children. I can't get married. We don't have paperwork. Walang history. Anak mo, ganon. And then anak mo, and anak mo.
Before we can build a nation, you have to start with a family first. You have to start with a family. But how can you start with a family when those people do not have families? Place them in families first. Lagay mo muna sila doon. With the older kids that we've taken in, it's hard for them to adjust in a single unit
And
family.
they can't be adopted per se
Hindi na.
anymore.
So, to them, the church is their family. Sometimes we get criticized na sabi nila, oh, it's just another institution that you built. Dapat yan, nilalagay ninyo sa mga bahay talaga, so sa nanay, tatay. But those kids, hindi na nila kaya mag-adjust eh. Hindi na nila kaya mag-adjust and the trust is not there. Kung wala kang relationship with that family, mahirap talaga mag-adjust yung family and yung child. One of my kids said, ano po bang definition nila ng family? Ito po ang family namin eh. Nasa sayo naman yung definition ng family. Sa iba nga, ang family nila are their pets. But to us, ito po ang family namin. Ang church po natin ang family namin. So, yun.
I mean, it sounds like caring for the orphan in your story. It's a very generational thing that your church passed on to you, your family passed on to you, and you passed on to your church.
Right.
I guess my question is, why does this sound like a rare story for Christians, at least here in the Philippines?
Coming from a pastor, ministerial point of view, there's a lot of things you consider when you are going to undertake an adventure like that. As a pastor, you don't want your people na maburden with finances, with extra responsibilities. Sometimes we get too busy with marking the X and the O's before we realize what's really important. And we forget to realize that when Jesus sent the disciples out to go into all the world, he didn't say, I'll make sure to cover your expenses first, and then you can go, right? If you go into, say, orphan care, it actually fulfills the Great Commission. What I found out for me, that I was teaching orphan care wrong. Na-shock lahat ng mga tao. Sabi ko, because we taught it as an advocacy. But the Bible says it's not an advocacy. It says God looks at pure religion as those who take care of orphans and widows. That means on the opposite side of the fence, if you are a church or ministry that doesn't do anything of that, in the eyes of God, I don't care how big or small your church is, sorry you're not pure religion in the eyes of God. All the others who are not interested don't realize that they can actually make a difference without necessarily adopting, without necessarily fostering, just like what's happened to our church. Like, oh, hindi ko kaya mag-ano, pero teka, I'm a doctor. Oh, I can, di ba? Oh, I'm an engineer. I can, oh, I'm a cook. Oh, I can, yung pala pwede pala yun. If you actually go into that, it's actually more empowering for the church, and it's also a better discipleship tool. Discipleship is the coined word of today's church. Lahat ng tao the discipleship. Every single one. Discipleship, discipleship, discipleship. I've been in ministry for almost 40 years. But now we've relegated discipleship as having a small group. That's not discipleship. Discipleship is watching people grow in Christ and eventually coming to the Lord. Pagka nas orphan care, perfect yun. Bakit you go into institution, those kids have nowhere to go? Automatically, ate, nakuya. Only churches and pastors would look at this in this way. It actually enlarges the scope of your discipleship. To put it on another note, I have seen a few churches who've taken this on, small churches, and I've seen them grow. We have a church in Antipolo, sa likod ng mining, dirt floors. It's a village church. Puro farmers yung nandun in the mountains of Antipolo. And their pastor is with us dyan. He's like, and he's not even married. He's like, sir, ma'am, subukan kaya natin. I said, sigurado ka? The church is the size of this room. How many did they take in? Una?
Ngayon,
first batch niya?
ngayon he has more than 10. I think more than 12. Yeah.
That's more than 10. And the church has grown though. Church has grown and grown and grown. If a small church like that can do something and make a difference, can you imagine what it will do for so many other churches who have the capacity to do that?
So after everything's been said and done, how has fostering and adopting maybe changed or influenced the way you see God?
When they ask me, how are you able to do what you do? Or why do you do what you do? Minsan, you'll hear, very colorful descriptions. I mean, super mom ka talaga, grabe talaga, everything that you do. Actually, hindi po talaga. Hindi. Pero ano lang yung tanong mo kanina, why did you say yes? Because it's so hard to say no. It has given me such a clear description of how God sees me. Grabe yung love sa'yo ni Lord. Paano mo ikikip yan just to yourself? Sobrang selfish mo naman kung tanggap ka lang ng tangkap ng love ni Lord. So nakita ko talaga yung love ni Lord sa akin. So when I give it to my kids, obviously hindi ko kayang pantayan yung love ni Lord, diba? When I get impatient, I see myself as yung patience sa akin ni God. How sobrang willing siya to forgive me over and over and over again. And so what I do for my kids, nire-reflect ko lang only a portion of how God sees me. So yun yung naging clear pananaw ko ng kung sino si God sa akin.
Well, to me, it's easy for me to say no. When we walked into this thing, I said I didn't know any better. I just knew it was the right thing to do at the right time. Puro how can you say no? I was raised to be thinking, ano bang mali dyan? Is it unbiblical? Is it morally wrong? Is it spiritually wrong? Kung lahat ng sagot mo, hindi naman, then there's only one answer left. It's yes. how will it happen? You can't even answer that, even with your own natural kids, di ba? When you have a baby lumabas, how do you make sure the child grows up? Well, you have theories and ideas, but hindi naman surefire yon, right? So, yeah, after you see what you see, and even if you understand the difficulties of where it's going to go and how it's going to be, you have to at least give it a chance to see where it goes. Not all of the kids who've come to us have actually stayed with us the whole long haul. There are some who eventually said, Tita, I want to explore ganito and I want to do that. Adult na sila, they can go, but they will always know that they can come back and have a home. They can come back Pasko, they can come back New Year, they can visit, they can do this and do that, and know that they'll have that. Yeah.
I have one last question. But this last question isn't mine. It's Andy's again. So, if you could have a conversation with Ernie now,
Ay, ano pa yun?
what would you like to tell him?
Tapos,
Conversation?
you're gonna need a towel.
Actually, madami na akong conversations with him. But, lagi ko sa kanya ang sinasabi, I kept my promise. I always say, anak, I kept my promise and I continue to keep my promise. Madaming tao nagtatanong sa akin, anong limit mo? When are you going to stop? Every time ba magbubukas ang
The
pintuan?
number one question.
Oo, like sinasabi nila, till when? Even with the kids who are with us, hanggang kailan sila sa'yo? Sabi ko, sarili kong anak, biological children ko, hindi ko nililimatahan. I'm not Western. Hindi ako Amerikano, hindi ako laking where I say 18 ka na, out ka na. Hindi, Pilipino tayo may apo ka na, nasa akin ka pa rin, di ba? Unless the Lord clearly tells me no, I will continue the mission na una, binigay sa akin ni Lord at pinangako ko sa anak ko. So, ang lagi ko sa kanya sinasabi, kahit minsan sobrang hirap. Just recently, I had another boy who left. One of Ernie's best friend. He chose to leave. I don't know why. Sabi niya, he wanted to explore. I felt really bad kasi yun yung best friend ni Ernie yun eh. Pero sabi ko sa kanya,
It's so long.
and he waited so long. It took us 6 years para makuha namin siya. And then in 2 years' time, he left. Pero ang tanging nasasabi ko lang, again, sasabihin ko sa anak ko, sabi ko, anak, I'm keeping my promise. Hanggang kaya ko, hanggang may buhay ako, hanggang hindi sinasabi ni Lord to stop, I'll keep my promise. Babalikan ko ang mga friends mo.
My fondest memory of Ernie was when he told me and mom, he said, oh yeah, adopt na namin kayo. Saya niya.
Yeah.
He was so happy. Parang, wow, talaga. Basta masaya lang siya. Kasi he wasn't really gonna change anything kasi they're already with us, di ba? So it's just a legal thing. So then he came up with this question, Dad, pagka ba adopted na ako, mapapalit ako ng pangalan? Sabi ko, of course. Sige, anong pangalan mo? Dad, ang gusto kong pangalan, Ernie James Harden. Sabi ko, kala ko pa man din malalim yung isipin mo, Ernie. Papalitan mo yung Ernie, Tica. Yung pala gusto maging kapangalan yung idol niya na basketball player. Ernie, kesa sa Ernie nakalagay talaga ngayon, Ernie James Harden, Tica. Yun talaga. My role in the family, I'm the spoiler sa aming dalawa. So pag Christmas, birthday party, come hell or high water, I have to make sure na ganun yun. I would tell him na anak, we need to change the thing. We didn't change anything from ano yung noon sa kayo ngayon. How we love you and your brother and nagmamahalan lahat sabay-sabay. He's got great seats from where he is. I would have probably said, I would have wanted to spend even more time with you. So I thank God na when the Lord took him home, COVID na. Kasi we were together every single day. The Lord knows exactly what he was doing. Kasi kung ngayon siya may sakit, we'll see each other in the morning and then at the evening na, divided na yung time. But we spent every waking moment, umaga hanggang gabi, with him until the Lord took him home. If it was possible to say more time, I would probably say I wish I'd spent even more time, with him. Hi, I'm Pastor James and Issa Tica, and from International Bible Church of Mandaluyong. We are broadcasters at 702 DZS Family Matters AM station every Tuesday. So come join us. It's the only Christian program in the country that is focused on foster and adoption.
And this is Issa Tica. Thank you so much. This Christmas season, think about how you can make a difference in the life of, doesn't have to be many children, just one child.
Just one.
Just one. And this is Sold Podcast, and we'll see you again next year.